Hey everyone, Sam here, also known as Mr. Stainless 001, and today we're back talking about Shadow of War. This past month we've been getting a lot of new information thanks to the folks over at IGN who were showcasing Shadow of War as part of their first program. So the most recent video that the folks over at IGN put out focused on the weapons and gear we can find in Shadow of War and how they can be upgraded. But before we get into this, if you want to talk with me more about today's video, or just join the community here on the channel and thereby join the hype for Shadow of War, feel free to join my Discord. There's a link to it in the video description. So we know that we'll be able to find and equip different pieces of armor in the game. We saw that in the 16 minutes of gameplay that were shown unannounced, but up to now we haven't known exactly what or how much we can customize of Talion's gear and loadout. Well, recently, IGN showed us just that. So from this image of the inventory screen, we can see that the items we'll be able to customize will be the sword, dagger, ranged, which can either be Talion's bow or Celebrimbor's forge hammer, armor, cape, and the runes that we have equipped on our Ring of Power. Each item that we equip, whether it be capes or daggers, will have a different look and style that will change our appearance in-game, which I think is super cool. I love stuff like that. For instance, wearing Rohirrim armor is going to look very different than if you are wearing some scavenged Orc armor, for instance. Each item has stats that will affect Talion's base stats. So for instance, a sword that has increased damage, armor that adds extra health, and so on. We equally know, or you could at least probably figure out for yourself, that much like the runes we could find in Shadow of Mordor, higher rarity and more powerful gear will drop from more powerful and legendary foes. For instance, you're probably not going to find legendary Bright Lord armor on a level 5 Uruk Captain. Speaking of powerful weaponry, with the likes of legendary weapons, some of them will have extra bonus stats that will unlock for the weapon if you fulfill a sort of side challenge. In the gameplay we saw from IGN, if they managed to stealth attack an enemy that was on fire, they would unlock a 25% stealth damage increase on their dagger. Obviously, something like this really adds an extra degree of challenge to the game. It's pretty cool to see this extra depth in the game as well, especially when it comes to something like your loadout and your weaponry. Some weapons will equally allow you to socket a gem to further buff their stats. It seems that gems can be dropped from either monsters and creatures in the game as well as from Uruks. We'll have to wait for definite confirmation on that, but I'd say Uruks and monsters alike will probably drop socketable gemstones. Equally, if you end up finding duplicates of items, or if you find items that you don't want to use, you can destroy them for in-game currency, which we now know is called Mirian. Speaking of Mirian, this is what you'll use to unlock gemstones on your weapons. There are equally 3 families of gems that we saw. Potency, which will focus on combat, Vitality, which no doubt centers around health and defense, and Wealth, which we could assume would increase loot or value of loot dropped from enemies, as well as perhaps bagging you better prices in the in-game stores. It should equally be noted that gems themselves can be upgraded to further buff their stats as well, but so far we're not totally sure on how the upgrading of the gemstones work. What I would assume is that if you find 3 gemstones that are of the same type. For instance, the gemstone we saw in the IGN video was a warrior's gemstone. So I would assume if we found 3 warrior gemstones, we could put them together and it would upgrade their stats that way. Finally, let's talk about gear sets. As we travel through the world and find pieces of legendary gear, we may notice that they are part of a set. For instance, perhaps a Rohirrim Guard set, or a Tower Guard for Minas Tirith, or in the case of the IGN gameplay, a legendary Bright Lord set. If you manage to find and equip each item in the set, it'll unlock new stats for you to use in battle for each item. So folks, those are just some of the things that I noticed and learned from the IGN first coverage. No doubt over the coming months, more will be teased to us, but in the meantime, why not let me know what you're most looking forward to with the game down in the comments below, and equally, why not let me know some gear sets and styles you'd love to see in the game as well. If this is the first time you've came across my channel, you are totally welcome. Feel free to subscribe and you'll be kept up to date with when new videos go live. But in the meantime, folks, have a great week, and I'll speak to you soon.